The Shift is brought to you by Joy Metrics. Welcome to The Shift. I'm Dr. Andrea Coyle. Shifties, welcome back to the next episode of the Shift podcast. Dr. Andrea Coyle here. Thrilled to have this week's guest, Dr. Claire Zangerle. We are also thrilled. We're kicking this off. This was done with intention to really celebrate this great profession as we approach Nurses Week. This begins May 6th, but truly, nurses deserve more than just a week. We deserve every single day to be recognized. Claire and I had an offline discussion, meaningful connections. We've both spent time in the Cleveland Clinic. We know folks at Allegheny General, so meaningful connections are really important. Claire, welcome to the Shift podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
I'm just going to dig deep in, but one thing I want to mention, we talked about our connection at the Cleveland Clinic, and I started off my career there in 1994, and one of my fondest memories of first being meaningfully recognized for Nurses Week was actually at the Cleveland Clinic on Euclid Avenue, and they brought in a band. I will never forget, they brought in a hot dog stand and popcorn, and it was just a beautiful May day. And I was a new nurse, and all the senior leadership, they were around, introduced themselves. And honestly, I still have that picture in my brain because I felt so welcomed and recognized. Claire, just wondering, would you be willing to share one moment in your great career that really sticks out for Nurses Week in recognition?
Yeah. Nurses are the backbone of everything we do in healthcare, and celebrating them for 1 week just doesn't seem adequate. But when we do have that lens on our nurses for Nurses Week, it's just something that we look forward to every year, and it's just a really special time. And throughout my career, and I've been a nurse for 35 years, I have some fond memories of Nurses Week celebrations. And I can tell you there are two things that really stand out to me. One is when I was at the Cleveland Clinic, and it was the most fun we had as a leadership team to pick the gift. Because you know what? There's no one gift that is adequate enough to give our nurses to show our appreciation. But not giving a gift to show our appreciation, to me, was a big miss. So we have thousands of nurses at the Cleveland Clinic. So think of buying one gift that everybody gets for all of the nurses. And I remember one year we gave the nurses a watch, and it was a Cleveland Clinic watch. It had a big green band. It had a big face, because at the time, that's when you were always looking at your watch to take respirations and all of that. It wasn't this digital world and all that. People didn't look at their phones to see what time it was. And just the joy and the fun that people had. But we got a watch, and it was like a Swatch watch. You remember the brand, the Swatch watches? And, I fought really hard to get that funded to be able to do. And I actually still have mine, and I talk to nurses who still have theirs. And to me, that was just a demonstration of, it was something to give, that we recognize that you're looking at your watch all the time, doing a lot of different things. And we made it say, it was around, your time is so important. And thank you for the time that you give this profession. And thank you for being a nurse. So that's really one that stood out to me. And another one, of course, again, was at the Cleveland Clinic, I should say, is when we created a nurses fun run. And we did that to kick off Nurses Week. And we did it in downtown Cleveland, and it's grown and grown and grown. And it's still, actually, it took a few years off, and it's back. And it's now a scholarship run. But it was, the whole community came out. And it was kind of a precursor to the big Velasano thing that they do now to raise money for cancer research. But it was something where everybody came together. They were outside of their environment. They were having a good time. We had sponsors, we had T-shirts, and people walked it. They brought their families, their kids. It was a big, huge celebration. And I think recognizing that our nurses are humans and have lives, and elevating them is just so important.
Oh my gosh, those are two great stories. Thank you for sharing. I do remember my gift from the Cleveland Clinic, and I don't think we were there. We were there at the same time. Do you remember when they passed out the green cooler bags you could throw
Yep,
over your shoulder and take them to Lake Erie?
yep.
That was the best gift I've ever received for Nurses Week. And it lasted for 10 years, and we all took it to Lake Erie and had our little lunches. It was fabulous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, I,
Yeah.
I will say too that with all of the good things, sometimes there are some misses in the gifts that we give. And I distinctly recall at a hospital where I worked before as a chief nurse, getting a photo of my nurse's gift in the trash can, and nurses not appreciating a gift. And you know what? That was a lesson for me, because it was a book, and it was a book about great gratitude, and it was a way to demonstrate gratitude for them, and it was not well received. And it also makes you think, how do I, as a nurse leader, think about what a nurse that's in the trenches, direct care all the time, what do they, how do they view appreciation, and us being grateful for them, or feeling that somebody appreciates the work that they do?
And I have to tell you, in my experience, I was the professional excellence director of Magnet for many years at a hospital in South Carolina, and I helped chair Nurses Week for many, many years. It's the $1 million question, Claire. What are the nurses going to appreciate? Because to me, the watch is brilliant. Every time you look at that watch, you think about the time and the effort that you spend. So I think it's brilliant. One year we got umbrellas, and that was not well received.
Right,
I
right.
remember that gift. It was not well
Yeah,
received. But
yeah, yeah,
I think it is the $1 million question. It's actually in many circles sometimes a little bit of a joke, like what's going
yeah.
to be the Nurses
It
Week
is.
gift.
It
But
is.
let's make everything positive and elevate this profession. I'm going to dig into a couple questions. Are you ready, Claire?
I am ready.
Okay. Recognition has changed, shifting significantly, moving beyond the pizza parties to focusing on purpose and professional growth. How can nurse leaders align Nurses Week efforts with the leadership priorities of the American Organization for Nurse Leaders to reinforce those goals?
Well, that's a great question because, like I mentioned before, recognition is not just around Nurses Week. Recognizing the work that's done, the impactful material work that's done day in and day out, caring for patients, is something that I think has to be focused on year round. Now, at AONL, we our organization is made up of nurse leaders, and it's made up of nurse leaders at all levels. Whether you're a new nurse leader, a supervisor, an assistant nurse manager, or whether you are an experienced nurse leader who may be the highest ranking nurse leader, the chief nurse executive, or the chief nursing officer at the organization. And we focus on nurse leaders in all cohorts, all levels, and at all types of organizations within the four walls of the hospital, whether you're a school nurse, whether you're a post-acute care nurse, whether you're in academia or industry. And everybody wants to be recognized. And everybody who's a nurse leader has teams that they recognize. And so elevating recognition is super important. And, we all know that the DAISY organization has taken recognition to the level that we want everybody to be part of, because that recognition is rooted in foundationally valuable and rooted in a reason, and why, and the why of that organization being founded is aligns beautifully with nursing practice and what happens every single day. So at AONL, we try, one of our strategic priorities is to elevate nursing recognition, nursing leader recognition, as well as direct care nursing recognition. So when you elevate something, when you make that a priority, what are the strategies that are going to get you there? Just talking about it is one thing, but what are you actually doing? And, it's the now what. okay, we've talked about it, we put it in our strategic plan. Now what? What are you doing? And what we have found is that the visibility of your nurse leader, no matter what level you are, whether you're a staff nurse, whether you are a manager or a director, or even a chief nurse executive, having the visibility of your leader and having the ear of your leader is the biggest recognition that you can get, that you have their time, you have their attention. And that is a gift that just keeps on giving. It means more to people than a once a year check-in with your evaluation. Walking the beat, walking the halls, having those conversations at different times of the day, different days of the week, not just the 9 to 5s. That recognition means so much. Seeing my nurse leader all the time when I or at times when I don't expect it is a huge recognition.
I so love that you said that, Claire, because I'm sitting here and I'm listening to everything you're saying. You're the nurse leader of AONL. And it's, do you know how like thrilled I was when you responded to my email and said, I'd love to be on the podcast? Because see, now I have FaceTime with you. And that it feels good. And even when you're in the four walls of a healthcare organization or a hospital, it's so true. People want to have those meaningful connections. We talked about that at the beginning of the podcast. And those meaningful connections don't happen once a year at your annual evaluation. It's done with intention, it's done with purpose. And so I want to thank you, first of all, for taking time to even meet with me and be on the podcast. It's incredibly meaningful. So I really appreciate that. You are actually role modeling everything we just talked about.
Well, you know what? We're all human and we all have our needs to be recognized. We all want to make that human connection. And you know what? I just think now, these days, it's even more important to have that human connection. And I don't know if it's because, as we get older, we feel that need. But when you think about it, think of all those times when you were a staff nurse and after work, you didn't just go straight home sometimes. We all went out to a restaurant or a bar or somewhere or a baseball game or something. And, I think sometimes we are getting away from that, and that human connection is so important. And there is nobody that is above anybody else that can't have that conversation. I'm never too busy to have a conversation with somebody. We just had our annual meeting and there were 5,500 people there. And the hardest part for me was not getting to say hello and hi to every single person that was there. And when I was walking around, I would stop and talk to people and they'd be like, why is she talking to us? And I want to get their feedback. Are we doing what you're paying us to do? Are we meeting your needs? And if not, tell me what we need to do, because that's why we're here. We're here to serve you. And I think nurse leaders feel the same way in their own organizations and with the teams they lead. Servant leader gets batted around a lot, but truly being able to serve in a role and is the greatest privilege.
It really is. And I'm thinking authentic leadership, because you do this really well. You're very present, and that is powerful. Leah Blackwell does the same thing. And
Does.
I just have these wonderful Deb Zimmerman. They're just present, and that's authentic, because you could be sitting there checking your phone right now. You're so busy, but you're authentic and you're here and you're present. And that is recognition as well.
Yeah. And
And
I think too, when, and that's all, they just want the eye to eye contact, that the nursing leaders and their teams just have that eye to eye contact. That makes a huge difference. I think, always have that just makes that oxytocin go, and you walk away feeling like somebody actually saw me. It's really nice.
it's very nice. And I think our new to nursing nurses need that more than ever,
Yeah.
because their landscape looks incredibly different than the landscape that we came up with. So it's 100%, it's paramount. I'm thinking about this question, and it might be a little similar, but I'm thinking we could come up with a discussion on this one too. In a time where nurses are asking for authentic leadership, flexibility, and visibility, how has the way we celebrate and recognize nurses shifted? And what could leaders do differently this year during Nurses Week?
Well, I'm still going to go back to that being present and
Yeah,
physically being around. And um, honestly, the biggest gift that they could give them is not during Nurses Week. It's every other week besides Nurses Week to be there.
I
And
love that.
yes, that's the biggest gift that they can give them. But you know what? Nurse leaders need to give themselves a gift too, because nurse leaders they have a lot on their plate and they try to be everything to everybody all the time. And if they aren't something to themselves, then they can't be anything to anybody. And that sounds trite sometimes, but it's so true. And it was interesting during COVID. I was at a standstill of what I could do for my nurse leaders. I needed to show some appreciation. I needed to figure out what I could do for them because they were not stopping. They were coming in constantly. They were gowning up. They were doing everything. Okay, everybody was sending them food. Everybody was, making sure that they were hydrated and nourished and all that. I didn't need to worry about that. I was beside myself saying, I can't give them anything. And so I turned to a friend of mine um, who's a PhD psychologist who is an expert in work-life balance and time management. And I said to her, I said, I'm struggling with what I can give my nurse leaders. Help me figure something out. And she and I came up with this idea about how do we help nurse leaders manage their time so that they have better work-life balance, because they were coming to work and they were working all day, and then 12 hours later they were like, I've accomplished nothing. I feel like I've accomplished nothing. I still have a to-do list that's 120 pages long. I'm going home feeling defeated. So my friend Carol Perlman, who's again, she is a work-life balance, time management expert, helped me create for nurse leaders a work-life balance time management course. We did it online. We gave them planners. We told them how to block their time. Well, I say we, Carol did this. She did a great job. That was a gift that we were able to give them. We gave them the gift of how to create time for themselves back. And they loved it. And we've replicated this program in other places. And now Carol's actually teaching our nurse executive fellows this. And it's giving them permission and time. And then it's trickling down to their staff to say, okay, you've got to go to the bathroom on your shift. You've got to eat a meal. You've got to take a break. And this is how we're going to help you do this so that your work environment is a positive work environment. So I think the gift that you give during Nurses Week is symbolic, but I think the gifts that you give the rest of the 51 weeks a year are really the true gifts.
True, well said. Consistency. I like consistency. When I ask people words in one word, what describes leadership, consistency comes up, and you
Yeah,
described that perfectly.
yeah.
Here's one last question, Claire. Can celebrating nurses now serve as a strategic leadership action that supports retention, belonging, and a strong professional practice environment?
Absolutely. And I mean, that's all I can say is absolutely yes, it can. Because if you make that a strategy, when you have a strategy and a priority, then you have actionable tactics that go with that. So you're gonna do those things. You're gonna say, how do I meet my strategic goal? And if your strategic goal is engagement with your staff and is recognizing your staff, then all of those other things that you mentioned, retention and belonging and how that practice environment gets fortified, it just happens naturally.
One thing that I thought was the most powerful thing that the Daisy Foundation did was when they created the Daisy Nurse Leader Award.
Mhm.
And and I feel like often leaders aren't recognized in the way they should be. And I don't like to say should, I guess in the way they could be. And so I'm going to encourage everyone. This is a call to action from this podcast Take 15, 20 minutes of your time. Write a nomination for your Daisy leader. Write a thank you note to your nurse manager. Write a thank you note to your chief nursing officer. These are the things. And when you write down and reflect on what you're grateful for, healthy neurochemicals are released, the serotonin, the oxytocin, the dopamine. And these are all great things. They're feel good chemicals. I encourage everyone during Nurses Month to say thank you and really appreciate and recognize all the great work that nurses are doing across the globe.
I love that. I would agree with that 100%. Recognizing your nurse leader is also demonstrating your leadership qualities as a nurse.
Agreed. Claire, I always end the podcast with one takeaway. What's one thing that you want all the shifties to take away from this podcast?
Well, because this is during Nurses Week, and it's such a special time of year. It's the spring. It's around Mother's Day. It's the start of the summer. I would say enjoy the season, embrace transitions, and demonstrate gratitude for those who've made a difference in your life, including a nurse or a nurse leader.
Oh, Claire, I'm going to drop the mic. That was a mic dropper. Thank you.
You're
Claire,
welcome.
thank you so much for your time, for your leadership, for your vision. And shifties, remember, your shift makes the difference. Keep shifting. Enjoying the shift? Help us reach more nurse leaders by rating and reviewing us on your podcast app. It takes just a minute, but makes a big impact. Search for The Shift, tap those stars, and share what you love. Your feedback shapes our future episodes and helps others discover us. Remember, rate, review, and amplify the shift today.